Assalamu alaikum sir, we are group 6. This is Kazi Sadia Firdaus. Our topic is spread of Islam across the Silk Roads and the Indian Ocean worlds. Today I will talk about Islam in the Swahili coast, Kilwa, Mombasa and Zanzibar, trade in gold, ivory and slaves, influence on architecture and language. This area became one of the most important crossroads of trade and culture in the medieval world. Islam did not arrive here through war or force. Instead, it came mainly through trade and travel. Over time, it shaped the region's cities, trade, and languages, and even people's identity. My main point today is this: Islam on the Swahili coast brought both good and bad effects. It opened doors to literacy, respect, and international trade, but it also connected the region to slavery and resource exploitation, which harmed African societies in the long run. Let's begin with the Swahili city-states. From the 9th and 10th centuries, Arab and Persian merchants began sailing regularly to East Africa. They used the monsoon winds to travel back and forth between Arabia, India, and even Africa. Out of this trade, small towns on the coast grew into rich city-states like Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar. Kilwa became powerful by controlling the gold trade from the interior, especially from Sofala in Mozambique. Mombasa developed into a strong political and commercial center, and if I talk about Zanzibar, it later grew under Omani rule and it became known for spices, ivory, and sadly the slave trade. Conversion to Islam was closely connected to trade. Muslim traders trusted fellow Muslims more. So many coastal rulers converted. Islam was both a matter of belief and a smart economic choice. It gave them stronger ties to the wider Indian Ocean world. Now, trade was the key to Swahili prosperity and it had two sides. The main export of the Swahili coast were gold, ivory, and slaves. Gold from Africa passed through Kilwa to markets in Arabia and India. Besides, ivory was in high demand in India and China, where it was carved into luxury goods. But the Hershey's trade was in enslaved people. From the 15th century, men, women, and children were taken from Africa and they are sold to Arabia, Persia, and India. They worked as soldiers, servants, and even laborers. This is the paradox of Swahili coast. On one hand, trade created wealth, cosmopolitan cities. On the other hand, much of this success depended on human sufferings. Zanzibar became the biggest center for this. In the 18th and 19th century, under Omani rule, it was the main hub for East African slave trade. It also had large clove plantations run by enslaved people. This shows the darker side of trade. Islam brought literacy and unity, but Muslim elites themselves were deeply involved in slavery. Another clear influence of Islam is seen in architecture. The most famous example is the Great Mosque of Kilwa that was built around the 11th century. It was made from coral stone, which was really special to the East African coast. In the 14th century, it was expanded with domes and larger prayer halls. Other towns like Mombasa and Zanzibar also built beautiful mosques, palaces, and houses that combined Islamic and African features. For example, wooden doors were carved with floral and geometric designs similar to those in Arabia. Many houses had private courtyards reflecting Islamic values of privacy and community. But what's interesting is that local builders didn't just copy Persian or Arab designs, they adapted them to local materials. Coral stone wasn't used in Arabia, so Swahili mosques had their own look. This mix created something new, both Islamic and African. Besides this, language also shows this blending. Swahili is mainly a Bantu language, but it borrowed many Arabic words, especially in religion, trade, and government. For example, kitabu means book from the Arabic kitab, and salah means prayer from the Arabic salah. Swahili became the main language of trade along the coast and even inland. It still plays that role today. Islam also shaped identity. Many Swahili elites claimed they were Shirazi, meaning they had the Persian ancestry. Even though most were African, this claim showed how much Islamic heritage was valued. Islam was not only a religion, it was also a source of status and power. So, how should we think about all this? It's the spread of Islam to the Swahili coast was not about conquest, it was about exchange. Islam gave rulers political legitimacy, connected them to global trade, and added new cultural ideas. At the same time, African traditions shaped Islam in return, in language, in art, and in daily life. But we cannot ignore the negative sides as well. The same networks that brought prosperity also spread slavery and dependency on foreign trade. Over time, this weakened local societies and made them easier targets for Portuguese and later European colonization. In conclusion, the Swahili coast shows how Islam trade and African traditions blended into a unique civilization. Cities like Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar thrived through trade. Islam influenced their architecture, language, and identity. But the story has two sides. Africans adopted Islam to connect to the wider world, but in doing so, they also became tied to systems of slavery and exploitation. So, the history of the Swahili coast is both inspiring and troubling. It shows the creativity of cultural mixing, but also the dangers of global inequality. So, that's all about my part. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jahidul Dishan. Today I am going to talk about how Islam was spread in South Asia through trade, travel, and culture. Islam did not reach this region through a single event. It was a long process that took over 100 years involving merchants, sufficients, and cultural exchanges. The Silk Road was the Silk Roads are very important for this event. So the Silk Roads, both land and sea roads, connected Arabia, Central Asia, Persia, and China. That led Muslim traders, scholars, and travelers use these roads not only to trade goods like silk, spices, and ceramics, but also to share their faith and culture. Cities like Bukhara and Samarkand became center of Islamic knowledge, while ports in India and China saw Muslim communities grow. Uh, these trade networks also created trust and community, making it more easy for Islam to spread. Secondly, the Indian Ocean trade was even more influential in South Asia. Traders from Arabia, Persia, and East Africa settled in coastal regions like Gujarat and the Malabar coast. They married local people, started families, and formed communities that blended Islamic and local traditions. Mosques, schools, and Sufi lodges are established along the coast, while which also became cultural and intellectual centers. Thirdly, Gujarat on the west coast of India was one of the most important entry points for Islam. Ports like Surat and Bharuch are connected to the Indian ocean trade network. Muslim traders settled here from the 8th century, and their presence grew the support of local rulers like Delhi Sultanate and later the Gujarat Sultanate. Trade, intermarriage, and cultural integration allowed Islam to spread peacefully. The mosques in Gujarat often blended Islamic and local architecture, showing a fusion of culture. Then the Malabar coast in Kerala also played a key role. The Arab traders here arrived here in 7th century, attracted by the spice trade, especially black pepper. They introduced the Islam through trade, building mosques like the Chiramin Juma Mosque, which is one of the oldest mosques in India. Um, they also formed a community um, called Mapilas, which was they are descendants of Arab settlers and local families, created a unique culture. Uh, in Bengal, Islam spread differently. Here, Sufi saints are central. They established people's beliefs with spiritually, socially, and economically. New villages often grew around Sufi shrines and local.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Atikur Rahman Asif, and today I'll talk about the spread of Islam across the Silk Roads and how it transformed the great cities of Central Asia and the Middle East. The Silk Roads were more than just trade route. They were the veins of civilization linking goods, ideas, and religions across the continent. When Islam emerged in the 17th century, it didn't destroy these networks, it reconstructed them. The spread of Islam along the Silk Road was a gradual process, fueled by trade, diplomacy, and intellectual curiosity. After the early Arab conquest, let's a little bit. Um, After the early Arab conquest, much of the Sasanian and Byzantine Empire fell under Khalifa rule. Uh, so, as the Khalifa ruled, however, the Islamization didn't happen overnight. As historian Richard Bullitt notes that conversion was often driven by social and economic benefits, not by force. The mosque and the marketplace became the centers of Silk Road cities where religion and business coexisted. The Khalifa the Caliph's Pact of Umar allowed Jews and Christians to maintain and uh, to maintain their religion to maintain their religion by paying tax, reducing resistance, and preserving local cultures. This thing helped integrate Islam smoothly into diverse societies. The economic transformation under the Abbasid Khalifa, which was started in 750, was profound. Cities like Baghdad, cities like Baghdad became the the center house of everything. It became thriving trade hubs connecting the east and the west. Luxury goods from China, India, and Central Asia flooded the markets, while while the Islamic world produces textiles, glassware, leather, and paper. In the Central Asia, cities like Samarkand and Bukhara flourished. After the Battle of Talash in 751, Muslim forces brought Chinese papers to Samarkand, revolutionizing revolutionizing knowledge by making books more accessible. This innovation paved the way for intellectual advancement in the Islamic world and even influenced the European Renaissance. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad became a center of scholarship where scholars translated Greek, Persian, and Indian works into Arabic, creating the foundation for much modern knowledge. Central Asian cities like Bukhara and Nishapur became renowned for their religious, intellectual, and commercial contributions. The spread of Islam also reshaped the social identity. By the 10th century, merchants from Bukhara could travel to cities like Cordoba or Cairo and find familiar institutions, mosques, madrasas, markets. and it was all regulated by Islamic law called Sharia. The Arabic language tied these cities together as a common means of learning and communication. In conclusion, we can say that the spread of Islam along the Silk Road wasn't just about religion. It created a new civilization. Cities like Baghdad, Samarkand, and Bukhara became the centers of trade, scholarship, and cultural synthesis, leaving a lasting impact on global history. Thank you.
Tanzim Hussain. Today I am going to talk about how Islam came to East Asia, aka China, through trade routes like Silk Road and sea routes, and how it influenced Chinese life in many ways, like economically or culturally. So, this is my poster, and my poster will show how exactly it happened. So, this is a picture of Silk Road. So, so Silk Road and Indian Ocean routes are not only about silk, spices, and trading. It also carries technology, beliefs, cultures, etc. From the 7th century, Islam came to China in mainly two ways, by the Central Asia and Middle East, and another way is by the southern ports of China. So there are some major played role cities. We can call it hub, like Chang'an, uh, Dunhuang, and Guanghu. And Guanghu is a major seaport located in South China Sea, and the another one, Dunhuang, was a major trading port located in a desert, in a big desert, and uh, Chanwang is actually the capital of Tang Dynasty. So, as we mentioned, Islam first entered China during Tang Dynasty, uh, and in that time, China was very welcoming to the foreign merchants. In the major area, major hubs like Chang'an, they mostly welcomed Persian and Arabian merchants. Uh, and in Duanhang, there was already uh, built small communities. They are mainly trades, textiles, spices, etc., and also glasses. By the 8th century, Chuang Ho was a very strong uh, community through sea trade, and then this mosque, it's called Huang Hen Mosque, built it in that time, and it was say that it's built it by Prophet's uncle, though there was not any strong proof, and it's one of the oldest mosque in China. Later, during Song Dynasty, Muslim merchants become important port uh, administration, and under the One Dynasty, Mughals gave central the power to the Muslim in Central Asia, um, and it also helped Islam to become more stronger in China. So, because of this, Muslim traders are dominating in sea routes, and another important point is, um, because of Islamic law, there was a trust, a bond between merchants, and they can trust each other easily, and it will lower the risk barrier, and this is one of the major point to succeed. And this area is actually Red Sea, and this is the Southern China Sea, and it actually connected to Indian Ocean. So Indian Ocean actually connected the whole things together. The whole Muslim religions praying to China is actually going through this Indian Sea. So there was Muslim traders also are very important for the economic from the economic perspective, and and also the cultural exchange, uh, because as we can see, the architecture of these mosques are not something we can see in the Middle East. It's kindly look like Chinese temples. The corners are bent and tiles the roof and wooden beams. It's not something usually we see in mosque. So uh, we can see there is a cultural blend, and but the core value was same. And for this, the Hui Muslims and other Muslim communities in China actually built a different identity. So, uh, so we can so there was some religious adaptation. So Chinese Muslim scholars actually wrote something called Han Kitab. It's actually shows the how Islam accepted and survived in China. So it actually a co-fusion of ethics and Islamic principles. So to the conclusion, Islam's arrival to the major areas, uh, it was a story we can say about trade, culture, and knowledge. From the architecture to the Hui Muslim community to the Han Kitab, the story shows the civilization are deeply connected.